What if I told you a simple game of chess could bring your worst nightmares to life? That moving a knight across the board could trigger horrors so terrifying, grown men would burn their homes just to avoid them? This isn't a myth. This is the story of a cursed chess set, one that doesn't play by the rules and doesn't stop when the game ends. Well, that's exactly what happened to the Patterson family in 1987, and what you're about to hear will make you question whether some games are simply too dangerous to play. Before we dive into this bone-chilling story, make sure to hit that like button if you enjoy these mysterious tales. Don't forget to subscribe with notifications on, because I post new stories just like this one every week. Our story begins in the quaint town of Millbrook, Pennsylvania, where antique dealer Robert Patterson thought he'd stumbled upon the find of a lifetime. The chessboard sat tucked away in the dusty corner of an estate sale, its intricate mahogany surface gleaming despite decades of neglect. The chess pieces were carved from what appeared to be black and white marble, each figure detailed with an almost unsettling precision of medieval figures. The elderly woman running the sale seemed almost eager to get rid of it, practically giving it away for $20. Robert couldn't believe his luck. The craftsmanship was extraordinary, clearly the work of a master artisan. He estimated it could easily sell for several $100s in his shop. What he didn't know was that the previous owner's family had been trying to dispose of this particular chess set for over 30 years, and the low price wasn't generosity, it was desperation. The first night Robert brought the chess set home, he decided to play a quick game against himself before bed. His wife Martha had already retired upstairs, leaving him alone in their cozy living room. As he moved the white pawn forward to begin, he noticed something odd. The piece felt unusually warm to the touch, as if it had been sitting in sunlight all day despite spending hours in his cool den. Robert dismissed the sensation and continued playing. He'd always been skilled at chess, able to strategize several moves ahead, but tonight something felt different. Every move seemed to flow naturally, as if the pieces were guiding themselves across the board. He found himself making brilliant tactical decisions he'd never considered before. Combinations that would have taken him minutes to calculate now appearing instantly in his mind. As the game progressed, Robert began to feel drowsy. The warmth from the pieces seemed to spread up his arms, creating a strange tingling sensation. His eyelids grew heavy, and despite his best efforts to stay alert, he found himself drifting off in his chair with the game still unfinished. That's when the nightmares began. Robert found himself standing in a vast, dimly lit chamber that resembled a medieval castle's great hall. The walls were lined with towering chess pieces, each one nearly 10 feet tall and carved from what appeared to be human bone. In the center of the room sat an enormous chessboard, its squares alternating between pools of black tar and burning white flames. As Robert watched in horror, the bone chess pieces began to move on their own, gliding across the board with purpose and intelligence. But these weren't ordinary game pieces. As they moved, they transformed into grotesque creatures, knights becoming skeletal horses with riders whose eye sockets blazed with unholy fire, bishops morphing into robed figures whose faces were nothing but gaping voids. The most terrifying part wasn't the creatures themselves, but the realization that Robert could feel their moves before they happened. Every strategic decision, every capture, every check sent waves of agony through his body, as if he were somehow connected to the game itself. He tried to run, but his feet remained rooted to the stone floor, forcing him to play as the nightmare chess match played out before him. Robert woke the next morning slumped over his living room table, the chess set still positioned exactly as he'd left it. His neck ached from sleeping in the chair, but more disturbing was the vivid memory of his dream. Every detail remained crystal clear, from the texture of the bone pieces to the smell of sulfur that had filled the nightmare castle. Martha found him there and expressed concern about his pale complexion and the dark circles under his eyes. Robert brushed off her worries, attributing the nightmare to stress and too much coffee before bed. He decided to put the chess set away and forget about the strange dream. But the chess set had other plans. That evening, despite Robert's intention to avoid the game entirely, he found himself inexplicably drawn back to the living room. The chess pieces seemed to shimmer in the lamplight, beckoning him to continue where he'd left off. Against his better judgment, he sat down and moved another piece. The second night's nightmare was even more intense. This time, Robert wasn't just an observer, but an active participant in the hellish game. He found himself transformed into a chess piece, a white pawn trapped on the burning squares of the nightmare board. Every move felt like walking through fire, every capture like being torn apart and reassembled. The psychological torture continued for weeks. Each night, Robert would swear he wouldn't touch the chess set, yet each evening found him seated at the board, compelled by a force he couldn't understand or resist. The nightmares grew progressively worse, bleeding into his waking hours until he could barely distinguish between reality and the horrific chess games that plagued his sleep. Martha watched her husband deteriorate before her eyes. Robert lost weight, rarely spoke, and spent his days staring blankly at walls as if seeing something that wasn't there. When she suggested seeing a doctor, he would only mutter about needing to finish the game. The breaking point came on a rainy October night when Martha woke to find Robert's side of the bed empty. She discovered him in the living room, but this time something was different. Robert sat perfectly still at the chessboard, his eyes wide open but completely unresponsive. The chess pieces were arranged in a pattern she'd never seen before, forming what looked almost like a ritualistic symbol rather than a game position. When Martha tried to shake Robert awake, his skin felt ice cold despite the warm room. His eyes remained fixed on the board, but they seemed to be looking through it rather than at it, as if he were seeing something far beyond the physical pieces. Most disturbing of all, Martha could swear she heard whispering coming from somewhere near the chess set, voices speaking in a language she couldn't identify. That's when Martha made a decision that would save her husband's life and her own sanity. She grabbed the chess set and threw it into their fireplace, dousing it with lighter fluid before Robert could stop her. The flames that erupted were unlike anything she'd ever seen, burning with colors that shouldn't exist and producing smoke that formed shapes resembling the chess pieces before dissipating into the night air. As the cursed chess set burned, Robert collapsed to the floor, gasping as if he'd been holding his breath for weeks. The color slowly returned to his face, and for the first time in months, his eyes focused clearly on his wife. He had no memory of the past several weeks, asking Martha why she looked so frightened and why there was a fire burning in their fireplace on such a warm evening. The Patterson family never spoke publicly about their experience with the haunted chess set, but Martha did share the story with her sister, who happened to work at the local library. Through her research, they discovered that the chess set had a history spanning over a century, passing from owner to owner, each family eventually disposing of it under mysterious circumstances. The pattern was always the same: vivid nightmares, psychological deterioration, and an obsessive compulsion to continue playing despite the obvious harm it caused. Some previous owners had been found dead at the chessboard, apparently having died in their sleep while playing. Others had simply disappeared, leaving behind only an unfinished game and terrified family members. What made Robert's case unique was that he was one of the few people to break free from the chess set's influence thanks to Martha's quick thinking and decisive action. Most others hadn't been so fortunate, becoming completely consumed by whatever dark force inhabited those carved pieces. The origin of the chess set remains a mystery to this day. Some theories suggest it was crafted by a medieval alchemist who infused it with supernatural properties, while others believe it was cursed by someone who died while playing their final game. What's certain is that the chess set represented something far more dangerous than a simple board game. After that terrifying night, the Pattersons made a pact never to bring antique games into their home again. Robert returned to his normal life, though he never played chess again, claiming that even the sight of a regular chessboard brought back disturbing memories he preferred to keep buried. The most chilling aspect of this story isn't just what happened to the Patterson family, but the realization that somewhere out there, that cursed chess set or others like it might still exist, waiting in estate sales and antique shops for their next unsuspecting victims. So the next time you see an ornate chess set with an unusually low price tag, you might want to ask yourself why someone was so eager to get rid of it. Because sometimes the most innocent-looking objects carry the darkest secrets, and some games are simply too dangerous to play.